Chapter 17. When Ben gets home, he grabs a snack and is about to head back outside when his mom calls out, "There's something for you in your room." What do you think it is? There's something for you in your room. Does anyone have an idea of what it is? Do you know, Becca?
The box of bugs.
The box of things he was looking for. He runs down the hall and finds a big box sitting on the bedroom floor. Its corners are squashed and Ben recognizes his own handwriting on the side. Ben's room. Finally, he says to himself, he drops his backpack, rips off the tape of the box to the box, and pulls back on its flaps. His mom comes in and leans against the door watching him. His first thought when he looks in the box is that there's not much as he remembered. What's missing? He pulls out the little pill bottles holding insects. The plastic food containers that hold the snake skin. The posters of the desert animals he folded so carefully when he packed in Tucson. And finally, down at the bottom, the books and his collection of rocks. Happy? His mother asks. Yeah, Ben says. His mother smiles and leaves the room. Ben looks through the stuff again. It's all there. But it still feels like something is missing. It's not as exciting or comforting as he thought it would be. All of the things in the box seem like parts of his life from so long ago. Some other time, some other place. He's glad he got the box back, but it doesn't seem so important now. He puts the stuff back in the box and runs to the kitchen. Why isn't this box so important to him anymore? James?
Because he's not in Tucson.
Okay, he's not in Tucson, but why else do you think this box isn't that important to him anymore?
Oh.
Want to add on to it?
He's getting older and it's not as interesting anymore.
Okay, what's interesting to him now?
Spadefoot toads.
Okay, Spadefoot toads. What else, Madeline?
The amphibians.
The-
Amphibians in the house.
Yeah, all these things in Massachusetts are interesting to him. He's put that desert life behind him, so it's kind of a whole new thing to him. So he's really enjoying Massachusetts now. His mom was busy with something on the other side of the room. So Ben grabs a handful of cookies and heads outside. He thinks about going by the trail, but he decides his bike will be faster. He wants to get to Miss Tibbetts' house before anyone else does. But by the time he gets there, the driveway is filled with cars. Miss Tibbetts' old station wagon sits next to her sister-in-law's car. Parked behind them are a bright green van with a name of a real estate company on the side and a blue car with the state insignia on the door. Ben's heart races. He knocks on the front door. When nobody answers, he walks around to the back and finds 4 people standing in a semicircle looking at the back of the field. Sandwiched between Miss Tibbetts and her sister-in-law are a tall lady in a business suit with a purse slung over her shoulder and a short, stocky man in a brown windbreaker and an ancient green baseball hat and hiking boots. He's holding a clipboard under one arm. No one's talking. They're just standing there looking like they'd rather be somewhere else. They all turn when they hear Ben come up. "Hello, Ben," says Miss Tibbetts. "Hi," Ben says back. "This is Tabitha Turner, my sister-in-law, and this is Adele Garrett, her real estate agent. And this, you must be the young man who called," says the man in the green cap. His face breaks into a grin. "I'm Hank Lindsay," he says, holding out his hand. Ben's dad has always told him you can tell a lot from someone's handshake. And Ben likes the friendly way Hank Lindsay shakes his hand. "Hi, Mr. Lindsay." The real estate agent looks at Ben and Mr. Lindsay like she thinks they don't belong here. But Ben isn't leaving. Not now. Then Miss Tibbetts' sister-in-law speaks up. "Excuse me, but I'm trying to mystify as to why this boy felt free to invite a person from the state onto my property." "I spoke with Mr. Lindsay too, Tabitha," Miss Tibbetts says. "I told him he should come." Tabitha Turner sniffs and shakes her head. "Well," says Miss Garrett, "this is certainly a beautiful piece of property. It has terrific possibilities. She gives Hank Lindsay a tight little smile. There's an awkward moment of silence, and Ben is glad he doesn't have to do anything but stand there and be a kid. Well, Mr. Lindsay says, taking out his clipboard, let's go have a look. It's over here, says Miss Tibbetts. The pool is down the path on the other side of the garage. She leads the way, and everyone follows behind her in a straggly line. What was in there? Mr. Lindsay asked, nodding to the empty cages beside the garage. Snakes, Miss Tibbetts says, hurrying toward the trailhead. My husband was a herpetologist. I know, Mr. Lindsay says. I met him several times. He knew his stuff. Tabitha shakes her head and mumbles something to Miss Garrett as they try to keep up with the others. Swallows scoop overhead and a mockingbird calls from the branches of a tree in the back field. This is an interesting piece of land, Mr. Lindsay says. There are several different habitats. There's that meadow behind the house, and it looks like there's an outcropping of granite over there. And a vernal pool, Ben says hopefully. The real estate agent swats at the gnats flying around her head. As they enter the woods, the canopy of leaves above them casts splotchy shadows on the forest floor. It's a little wet back here, Mr. Lindsay says. I don't know if you could build on this part. It's always wetter in the spring, the real estate agent says, treading carefully to avoid getting mud on her shiny shoes. It takes a while for the odd mix of hikers to get through the woods. Mr. Lindsay, Ben, and Miss Tibbetts step several times on the path so the other two women can catch up. When they get near the vernal pool, Ben runs ahead. It's almost like he wants to warn the pool that people are coming. But when he gets to the big rock, he stops and stares. There's no pool there. He can't believe it. It's completely dried up. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would never believe there was a pool here only a few days ago. Now it's just a little dip in the ground surrounded by rocks and trees. There are leaves casting a deep shadow where the pool had been. Small yellow-green bunches of leaves are shooting up out of the spot. Ben hears the others approaching and turns to face them. This is the pool, he says, hoping Mr. Lindsay can see something that isn't there. This is where the Spadefoots come. But there's nothing here, exclaims Miss Garrett. Not even a puddle. But it was here, Ben says. It's been here every year, for thousands of years. Oh, really? Says the real estate agent. Mr. Lindsay squats and looks at the site. They all watch him. He scratches the back of his head, then pushes aside the plants growing up out of the dark, rotting leaves. He presses a finger into the damp earth like he's a doctor examining a patient. What do you think? Ben asks. Mr. Lindsay stands up and looks around with his hands on his hips. He steps back several yards, then walks into the circle, checking the ground several times. He scribbles something in his notebook attached to his clipboard. Well, this could be a significant site when there's no sign of a pond here. Well, yes, ma'am, there are signs. I can tell it's a vernal pool. Ben smiles and glances over at Miss Tibbetts, her eyes on the place where the pool once was. But everyone turns to look at Mr. Lindsay. There are two problems. First, we'd have to document that it contains threatened or endangered species that need vernal pools to survive. We saw Spadefoots, Ben practically shouts. Miss Tibbetts has seen them for years. Right, says Mr. Lindsay, but we need proof, pictures or something. It wouldn't have to be Spadefoot toads. There are other vernal pool species. Fairy shrimp, fingernail clams, and castified larvae, for example. But everything has to be well documented before we can stop any development. Just what I've been saying all along, says Miss Garrett. You can't even hold us up from selling something without proof. I've got a buyer and an owner who is ready to sell. End of story. But, Mr. Lindsay, Ben begs, Can't you just hold off the builders until we can get proof? Excuse me, young man, Miss Tibbetts snaps. Everybody shuts up and stares at her. Ben, let Mr. Lindsay talk. Mr. Lindsay takes off his cap, smooths back his thinning hair, then replaces the cap on his head. There are other problems. In order to be certified as a vernal pool, the site would have to be filled with water for at least 2 months. And I'm not sure this pool would have been big enough to qualify. But that's not fair, Ben blurts out. The Spadefoots don't even care how big it is. They need it to live. Gloria, Miss Turner says to her sister-in-law, glaring at Ben like he's a dog that needs to be disciplined. Can't you do something about that boy? He's right, Mr. Lindsay says. It's not fair, but it's the way the laws are written. There are Spadefoot toads here, Miss Tibbetts says, and they are endangered, Ben adds. I know, Mr. Lindsay tucks his clipboard back under his arm. It's a weird little loophole in the law. Spadefoots are particularly difficult to document since they don't need a very big pool. So, the real estate agent says, it's not really a problem. Mr. Lindsay looks at her and sighs. Unless you're a Spadefoot. Ben feels tears welling up in his eyes. He can't believe there's nothing anyone can do. Without another word, the adults turn and head back toward the house. Ben falls in beside Miss Tibbetts, and she places her hand on his shoulder. It's a long, quiet ride. When they reach Miss Tibbetts' yard, they all stand in the driveway. Miss Garrett breaks the silence. So, Mr. Lindsay, things have not really changed in terms of what can happen to the land. There's nothing to prevent its sale. No, Mr. Lindsay hesitates. But you know, if there was real concern about preserving an endangered habitat, it's possible that the sale could be made to a group that would protect it. The Nature Conservancy, or the Land Trust in the town might buy the land. They would pay you, then not develop it. But not at its full value, the real estate agent says. Development isn't really the way to get most out of this piece of property. Selling it to some nature group wouldn't be nearly as profitable. Not as profitable as putting up a bunch of houses, no. He looks over at Miss Turner. But I'm sure they would offer a fair price. It's a special piece of land, even if the state can't protect it. Miss Tibbetts keeps her eyes on her sister-in-law. Miss Turner stares down at the driveway pavement with a straight mouth, arms folded across her chest. Thank you, Mr. Lindsay, she says. We appreciate your time. Miss Tibbetts blows a short, exasperated burst of air out of her mouth. Her sister-in-law frowns. Selling the land helps you too, Gloria. Don't make me the bad guy. It's silent again. Mr. Lindsay takes his wallet out of his pocket and pulls out a card. He hands it to Miss Turner. She looks at the card like it's poison, but she takes it. If you have any questions or concerns, he says, give me a call. He shakes hands all around and comes to Ben last. It was a pleasure to meet you, young man. Ben smiles weakly and shakes his hand, but he's hugely disappointed in this man who should have been able to make things right. As Mr. Lindsay drives away, Miss Turner and the real estate woman stand by the van talking quietly. I'm going inside, Tabitha, Miss Tibbetts calls. We'll talk later, her sister-in-law answers. Ben and Miss Tibbetts watch as the car and the real estate van pull out of the driveway. Want a cookie? Miss Tibbetts asks, putting a hand on Ben's shoulder. Okay, Ben says. Ben sits at the kitchen table where he sat a half a dozen times before. How much is a half a dozen? How much, Fisher? Good. Ben sits at the kitchen table where he sat a half a dozen times before. The late afternoon sun shines through the window onto Miss Tibbetts' hands, resting on the table just across from him. It's over, Ben thinks. All of this. And nothing happens. The houses get built. The Spadefoots lose their homes. Isn't there anything you can say to your sister-in-law? He asks. Miss Tibbetts shakes her head. There's not a thing I can do. We're just too far apart, and she wouldn't listen to me no matter what I said. But Mr. Lindsay said she could still make money even if she sold the land to people who would take care of it. I know, but she's got her mind made up. They have a buyer who's willing to pay a lot of money. I can't imagine what would make her change her mind. Ben looks out the window and tries to picture the trees gone and the land filled up with houses. Your husband wouldn't have sold the land so someone could build houses on it, would he? No, he loved this land. Doesn't she love it too? You'd think so. She grew up on it. I tried reminding her of that, but she wouldn't listen. She won't listen to anything I say. Some of Miss Tibbetts' words catch Ben's attention. She grew up on it. An idea hits him. Miss Tibbetts, where are those pictures? What pictures? You know, those old pictures you were going through a couple weeks ago? Where are they? On the dining room table. Ben jumps up and runs to the dining room. He brings the box back into the kitchen and dumps the contents onto the table. Miss Tibbetts watches him without speaking as he searches through the yellowed old photographs. He finds the snapshot he's looking for and holds it up in the fading daylight. It's a picture of two kids sitting on the rock. Suddenly, he realized that it's the rock he and Miss Tibbetts sat on by the vernal pool. He gazes at the picture, watching the years fall away. The girl is Tabitha, and the boy is Thomas. They're both holding American toads. The girl has a big grin and doesn't look anything like the grown-up Miss Tabitha Turner. Ben flips over the photo. Scrawled on the back are these words: Tom, me, and the overtoad. He turns over the picture again and looks at the girl holding the toad. The overtoad. Tabitha and the overtoad. Miss Tibbetts, this is Tabitha, isn't it? Miss Tibbetts takes the photo and holds it at an arm length. Yes, she says, squinting. It's Tabitha and Thomas. Look at what she wrote on the back. She knows about the overtoad. You mean she knew about it when she was little? But she forgot, Ben says. Yeah, she forgot. Things happen when you grow up and you forget. Miss Tibbetts gets up to put the dishes into the sink and Ben slips the photo into his jacket pocket. I have to go now, he says. I need to get to work on my geography report. Miss Tibbetts dries her hands on a dish towel. Your report? I thought you said it was due today. It was, but Miss Kutcher gave me another week. I changed what I'm doing on it. If I don't finish it this time, she'll kill me. I doubt that. Well, bye, Ben says and scoots out the back door. There's so much to do, and he doesn't even know if he has enough time. But he whirls around and sticks his head back through the doorway. Miss Tibbetts, maybe the overtoad will save us. I would love that, Miss Tibbetts says. Who thinks that they're going to save the land? Who thinks that they're going to build on the land? No? 2 days later, on a hot Sunday afternoon, Ben leads Ryan and Jenny down the path from his house. They're all carrying supplies for the expedition, and Jenny's got her camera slung around her neck. Ryan drops the plastic containers he's carrying, and they skitter across the trail. Ben and Jenny help him pick them up. It's good your body parts are attached, Jenny says, or you'd lose them too. Has anyone heard that before? It's like you lose so many things. Yes, it's an idiom. Good. You lose so many things that, like people say, like if your head wasn't attached, you'd lose that too. No one's heard that?
I have.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Ryan laughs. Like you never lose anything. You're so perfect. Jenny smiles. Ben slows down to check his pocket. Did he forget the list of things to search for at the site of the vernal pool? No, it's still there, along with the pictures he printed from the internet. Eggs from fairy shrimp, caddisfly cases, snail shells, and fingernail clams. Nothing they're looking for is longer than 2 inches, but Ben hopes he can find some specimens to show what lives in a vernal pool. He wants to show everything he can in his report. When they get to the side of the pool, Ben stops. "Here it is," he says. Ryan and Jenny stare at the mud-encrusted, leaf-strewn ground. "I don't see any pool," says Ryan. "I told you, that's what a vernal pool does," says Ben. "It dries up." "But there's nothing left to find," Ryan says. "There's got to be something. Help me look. And Jenny, will you take some pictures of the area?" Ben steps carefully out to the middle of the darkened leaves where the pool was and squats down. Ryan starts shoving leaves and dirt aside. "I don't see anything," he says. "Hey," Ben yells, "you've got to be more careful. We don't want to mess everything up." While Jenny snaps pictures, Ryan and Ben work quietly and methodically, sifting through the mud. First, Ben finds a caddisfly casing. Then Ryan shouts, "Hey, look, a little clamshell. And here's another one." "I know," Ben says. "It's like there's nothing there. But when you look closely, and bam, a whole different world opens up." Within 15 minutes, they fill a couple of containers with snails, clams, and caddisfly shells. "Too bad we can't get a spadefoot," says Ryan. "They're around here somewhere," says Ben, "but they're impossible to find." Just then, something moves in the leaves by his feet. He bends over and pushes the leaf aside. Ben gently places his hand over the creature and picks it up. "Is it a spadefoot?" Ryan asks. "Nope," says Ben. "It's a wood frog. Remember the one I brought into school? They use vernal pools too." He opens his hand carefully. "Look at it." The three of them peer down at its tan, smooth skin and dark mask around its eyes. "It's cool," Ryan says. Ben looks at the frog. Then he looks at Jenny and Ryan. An idea comes in his head. A great idea. "You guys, go sit on that rock over there," Ben says, pointing to the boulder by the side of the pool. What do you think his idea is? Want to try, Hunter?
He wants to do the same picture as Tabitha and Thomas did.
Ooh. "How come?" Ryan asks. "Just do it, please." Jenny shakes her head, but she follows Ryan to the rock and clambers behind him. Jenny, can I use your camera?" Ben asks. He takes the camera from her and puts the strap around his neck. "One more thing," he says, handing the frog to Jenny. "You have to hold it like this. Hold it up so I can see it." "No way! What if it poops on me?" "Consider yourself blessed. Just take it. I'll hurry." They're laughing as Ben focuses the camera on them. "Okay," he says. "Jenny, hold the frog a little higher. Both of you guys smile." "Ribbit," Ryan says. "Ribbit, ribbit, ribbit." Ben clicks the picture. Ben works like crazy on the report. For the next 5 days, it's all he thinks about. The best part about the report is what it feels like when it's finished. It's like Ben hasn't taken a breath for weeks, and suddenly his lungs are filled with fresh air. Or like he's taken off a pair of really dark sunglasses and can finally see clearly again. And when he's finished, he knows it's good. He just hopes it's good enough. It's raining, but by the time Ben finds the street he's looking for, it has started to pour. He's drenched, but his report is inside his jacket, safely tucked into a plastic bag. He pedals his bike slowly so he can see the street numbers. Then he recognizes the car in one of the driveways. Ben parks his bike on the sidewalk, walks to the door, and knocks. Nobody's there, so he knocks again. He's about to give up when the door opens. Tabitha Turner stands there looking surprised. "Yes?" "Hello, Miss Turner. I'm Ben Maroney. Drops a rain trickle from his hair and slide down his nose. He wipes his face with the sleeve of his jacket. I met you at Miss Tippett's house. I know who you are. I'm really sorry to bother you, but I've got something I want to show you. It's my report for geography. She raises one eyebrow. Geography? Yes, ma'am. Geography. It'll just take a minute, please. Tabitha Turner looks behind in the house like she's trying to figure out a way to escape. But she steps to the side and motions for Ben to come in. You can hang your wet jacket on that coat rack, she tells him. And maybe you better leave your shoes by the door. Ben does as he's told and follows Miss Turner into a large living room. She sits in a straight-backed chair by the window. Ben checks the seat of his jeans to make sure it isn't wet. Then perches on the edge of the couch. With his heart pounding, he slides his report out of the plastic bag and places it on the coffee table. I wanted to show you my report on ecosystems, he says, scooting it over so she can see it. She glances down at the report, then looks at him blankly, like she's still trying to figure out what he's talking about. I was going to do it on the desert, because that's where I lived until 4 months ago. I really loved it there. There was a great museum near my house, and I had all this stuff about deserts. I even had a lizard. Its name was Lenny. But I didn't get to bring him with me when I moved. My friend Toby was keeping it, and it died. Miss Turner nods, waiting to hear what this is all about. But when I started my desert report, I didn't feel like doing it anymore. Ben was halfway afraid to go on, but there's nothing to do but just plow ahead. So, instead, I decided to do it about what it's like where I live now. He takes a deep breath and lets it out. I decided to do it about your land, about your vernal pool. Tabitha Turner clears her throat and shifts uncomfortably in her chair as if she's about to speak. But Ben doesn't give her a chance to interrupt. He opens his report and holds it out to her. I know you don't have time to read all of this, but here I talk about how the pool has been there for a really long time, probably for 10,000 years, and about the people who have lived there. The Wangapong Indians walked through here maybe 1,000 years ago. They were the ones who met the Pilgrims. Ben thumbs through until he finds the photo. See, here are some of the animals that live in vernal pools. These are salamanders, spotted ones, I'm pretty sure. We didn't find any in your pool, but they live around here. And look at these, caddisfly larvae. They make these little buildings out of sticks. He holds the booklet up so she can see the little clamshells he taped to the sheet. I found these at the pool site, and I figured they were fairy shrimp too, but I couldn't find any. I know Spadefoots were there early this spring, but they're all spread out now. Still, me and my friends did find something interesting. Ben flips to the last page, where he taped the picture of Ryan and Jenny sitting on the big rock by the dried up pool. They're both laughing, and Jenny's nose is scrunched up. She's holding the wood frog away from her because she's afraid it's going to poop on her. Ben has barely looked at Miss Turner the whole time, but now he sneaks a glance. She's studying the picture of Ryan and Jenny. There is the barest hint of a smile on her face. He wonders if she knows. He's about to find out. He barrels ahead with what he's been planning to say. What could happen here is more important than any grade he's going to get in geography. And I put the picture at the end of the report because the picture I put on the front of it. He flips back to the first page of the report and holds it up for Tabitha Turner to see. What do you think that first picture is? What do you think? What do you think, James?
It's the old picture that it was Tabitha on top.
Good. The picture is old and crinkled on its edge. It shows two kids sitting on a rock holding toads. The girl is holding the fat toad under her chin and laughing. Tabitha Turner catches breath catches. Ben looks up at her and she sees her hand go to her mouth, but he's not done. Let me read the first page, he says. Ben reads louder over the sound of his heart pounding in his chest. There is another habitat close to me that I just discovered. And it's like the planet. Even though it's small, it holds 1,000 things. And once there were 2 kids who lived near it. They were brother and sister. They made up a funny story about a giant spirit that looked over the land, or after the land. They called the creature the Overtoad. This is the story of a land and water that the Overtoad protects. It has protected it for thousands of years, and I hope it protects it for thousands more. My report is about the vernal pool and Edinburgh, Massachusetts. Ben watches as Tabitha Turner takes her hand from her mouth and reaches out for the report. He hands it to her. After staring at the picture for a moment, she looks at the ceiling like she's trying to see right through it in the sky, then closes the report. She opens it again and leafs through the booklet page by page. When she sees the picture of Ryan and Jenny, she stares at it, then flips back to the picture of her and her brother. Miss Turner, Ben pleads, please don't let them put houses where the toads are. I know it's your land, but please don't do it. Miss Tibbetts doesn't want you to do it either, but she thinks you're mad at her. I know you don't get along. She says you won't listen to her. Tabitha Turner gives him a sad smile. I know what my sister-in-law thinks, she says. She pauses for a moment and then asks, does she know you're doing this? Ben shakes his head. She thinks it's too late. I was hoping you might sell it to someone who won't put houses on it, but she says you won't change your mind. He looks at Tabitha Turner. Her face shows nothing. Suddenly, Ben is exhausted. He should have never done this. Miss Tibbetts was right. Miss Turner stands, the report still in her hands. I'll need that back, Ben says. What will you do with the picture? She asks, handing him the booklet. I'll give it back to Miss Tibbetts. If it's all right, I'd like that picture, Tabitha Turner says. Okay, Ben says. When I get the report back, I'll ask her if I can give it to you. Actually, she adds, I'd like both of them. The other one, too. Sure, Ben says. Okay. Miss Turner leads him to the front door and opens it. Thank you for coming by, Ben, she says. Okay, Ben says. If you want, you don't need to say anything more, she says. Thanks for coming by. Ben climbs on his bike for the long ride home. When he looks back, Miss Turner is standing behind the storm door watching him. He feels empty. It's all up to the Overtoad now. The next day, when Ben sets his terrarium and his report on the big table at the back of the classroom, a bunch of kids gather around it. What's in there? Someone asks. Wetland plants, Ben asks. Any snakes? Danny Martin asks. Ben shakes his head. Toads? Someone else asks. Frogs? There's an American toad in there, Ben says. I can't see it, Danny says. It's camouflaged, Ben says. It doesn't want you to see it. Let's take it out, another kid says. I think we should leave it alone, Ben says. It's already freaked out about where it is. I'm going to take it back to the woods tomorrow. Why don't you keep it? Tommy Miller asks. I don't feel like it, says Ben. His classmates try to find the toad in the terrarium, but lose interest after a while and drift back to their desks. That's when Ben notices Jenny leafing through his report. Geez, Ben, this is really long, she says. I know, Ben says. I kind of got carried away. Ryan appears at Jenny's side. Let me see, he says, and grabs for it. Whoa, it's 1,000,000 pages. 15, actually, Jenny says. About almost 1,000,000, Ryan says, flipping through the pages. Don't mess it up, says Ben, or I'll feed you to the Overtoad. As he says that, Miss Kutcher comes behind Ben. Did you bring this in, Ben? She says, looking down at the terrarium. Yes, he says, it's part of my report. He takes the report out of Ryan's hands and gives it to Miss Kutcher. She thumbs through it, and a huge smile spreads across her face. Great work, Ben. Great work. Ben grins. It is great work, and he knows it.